had to move out of our home and in with my in-laws and rent out our property just to try and keep ourselves afloat. I blindly followed without a critical brain, and we ended up in what we'd call a negative cash flow hole.
As an entrepreneur, you've decided to use leverage. How did you learn it? Was this instinctive?
Through projects that I trialed and errored. If you reframe those as huge learning experiences, those are the moments that propel you faster.
Ilse Wolfe went from $0 to $20 million. She's a property renovator and investor who now teaches people how to buy, renovate, and rent out properties to build millions of dollars worth of portfolios.
I'm a huge believer in leverage and reciprocal leverage. Leverage is, how can I hack? How can one get to where they want faster? Jumping on the shoulders of giants, get a mentor, leverage other people's money, other people's time, other people's knowledge. There seems to be this expectation that you're either investing for capital growth or rents and cash flow for yield. I disagree. The strategies that I've practiced and finally refined to get to that milestone of 20 million, I redefined my truth as I want all of it. The framework which drove that success and the speed of that growth.
Ilse, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Mina.
So cool to have you here. You are someone that I have recently met at an event, and when you were talking on stage, I thought this lady needs to come on the podcast and chat, because there's a thing or two or 20 that you could literally share with my audience and with me as well. So to start off with, I want to know, how did you go from, we're going to talk about who you are and you know, your background, but I want to know from you, how did you go from 0 to 20 million? What is like the framework? Because people do have an idea of who you are. We have it in description. There's a trailer and intro that's just happened. But I want to understand, how do you go from 0 to 20 million, and then you develop a coaching program, which is a completely different coaching thing and is successful, and actually create demand out of all of that. So we're going to get straight into it, and then we'll get into your story a little bit later on. So whoever's listening, wait for that.
Great.
So yeah, take it away.
So there's a lot in that.
I know.
I hope you're ready.
I am ready. I've been mentally ready for this.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to meet with you at the
Likewise.
event, and it's such a compliment, so thank you. And to be honest with you, that's really humbling, because that day, you know, just hearing from other entrepreneurial women, including yourself, just the inspiration in that room was alive,
Yeah.
you know, 900 women. And I felt really privileged to be there. So that's really kind. And I hope that you listening, you're able to take some, you know, nuggets, whether they're technical or metaphorical, and apply them to your business. You know, for myself, I started investing in real estate, but I believe that a lot of the skills and lessons and business application of them are transferable to wherever you are and whatever you're doing. The first part of the question,
That's
so
right.
0 to 20 million. So, you know, I guess if you were to search my name, that is sort of a bit of a tagline regarding the growth of my real estate portfolio. I predominantly focus on residential, very, very passionate about improving what is actually a very poor quality of New Zealand housing stock overall.
Right.
Very dated stock, but therein lies so much opportunity. Having grown up with asthma as a child, and with it being such a major health issue in our country, damp homes, mouldy homes, I'm you know, very personally vested in trying to improve it for Kiwis. So renovating existing builds is basically the foundation of how I've built that portfolio. What I would point out is that there was no pace to the beginning of that process. So starting out, whether it be real estate or any other investment, business curiosity, you start with limited knowledge and resource, right? So I'm a huge believer in leverage and reciprocal leverage. It may be that there's someone like a Sir Bob Jones or someone that I've admired, you know, and want to learn from him, for example. So you'll have your version of that person you want to be. What do you have to offer reciprocally, so that you are, you know, gaining from them, but in a way where you can also help?
Can I just pause you? If people don't understand what leverage means, what does it mean in this context?
Sure. So leverage is I'm an impatient person when it comes to my ambitions and success. So leverage is, how can I hack? And that's a word I use a lot too. How can one get to where they want faster? What can you leverage? Leverage is basically jumping on the shoulders of giants, for a lack of a better term, whether that be get a mentor, learn from someone, leverage other people's money, often referred to as OPM. So other people, could be other people's money, other people's time, other people's knowledge, expertise, tenure. And all of that is to shortcut time, right? What's the goal of leverage? Shortcut time or cheat time. That's how I like to think about it. Basically, as a coach now, my clients are cheating time by shortcutting with my expertise and exposure to, I would say, 500 or 600 renovations over my time. And that's how I would summarize leverage.
Okay, that's cool. So the premise of the 0 to 20 million, and when we're talking about 20 million, that's portfolio of your properties that you've been able to invest in. And it is an entrepreneurship. Because there's heaps that goes into going from 0 to 20 million and handling all these properties and handling the people, the projects, the timelines, the struggles, the admin and all that. So this is entrepreneurship at its best. And as an entrepreneur, you've decided to use leverage, aka using other people's times, money and resources. So how did you learn it? Like, was this instinctive, or were you like, I have no idea what to do, and then this is taking too long, and so I'm going to just do leverage? Like, how does it? Can people just have it or build it?
I believe it's a bit of both. I think there is, times are different now. When I grew up, we didn't have the internet. That makes me sound extremely old. But I've always had this rush or need to hurry up. I'm probably guilty of always thinking about the future a little more than enjoying the present. I'm definitely guilty of that. But I think part of that helps drive the need for leverage for myself. So I think there's an innate aspect to leverage. For me, it was always the thought that I don't want to retire at 65, which is, I believe, now 70, and only enjoy the fruits then, because my parents sort of taught me that, when you're young, you have your health, but you don't have wealth. And when you're older, you may have wealth, but do you have the health? You don't know until you're there. And that's too late to find out. That's how I feel about it. I want both. I don't want to be given ultimatums or options. So I think that mindset is possibly internal for me, which is I want it all as soon as possible while I have health, and I want the wealth, And that's the same how I treat the business thought and how I treated my portfolio, rental portfolio. There seems to be this expectation, or I don't know, I would say it's a miscommunication, that you're either investing for capital growth, which equates to wealth, or looking at rents and cash flow for yield. I disagree. The strategies that I've practiced and finally refined, first of all, to get to that milestone of 20 million of real estate, was not taking that as gospel, not taking that as the truth. I redefined my truth as I want all of it. And so through projects that I trialed and errored, lots of errors, but if you reframe those as huge learning experiences, those are the moments that propel you faster. So if you're scared of, I'd say being scared of mistakes is I would say a danger. Being scared to the point where
why is that?
You do not take action is a bigger danger.
Really?
Because taking the action to make the mistake, or whatever you call it, the failure, from there you have such a visceral reaction, because humans are driven to avoid pain. So when you feel that pain, you really feel that multiple fold than the height of a win. And so the lessons are so much more ingrained. Also, when it comes to financial losses, you'll never repeat them twice, right? The pain of that financial loss.
Well, you would think so.
You'd hope. So I guess for myself as a renovator, I was trying different methodologies. I was taking other people's word as buy in this specific part of Auckland. That's how you'll make wealth. I blindly followed without a critical brain down one stage of this path. And we ended up in what we'd call a negative cash flow hole. Basically, all the outgoings to the bank, what have you, cost more than the rents I had created through that renovation. And as a result, at one point, we had to move out of our home and in with my in-laws and rent out our property just to try and keep ourselves afloat. So that was one very hard lesson. We physically had to move with our newborn. My husband effectively was working for 5 months of the year just to top up the mistakes I'd made to keep the mortgages going so that the bank wouldn't come knocking and say, you're not keeping up with your mortgage repayment on this property. So that kind of lesson is a massive learning point. And I would say those are the ones that increase the trajectory of your growth.
Is there any framework that you have used looking back? Obviously, when you're starting in the early days and you're going through all these struggles and mistakes, you don't have all the frameworks, and you develop them, and then years down the line you look back and you go, so that was a framework, that was the thing, there was the steps. Can you please tell us what sort of frameworks you use so that people at home can take it away and literally apply it tomorrow?
Sure. So this is so correct, because lack of resource and knowledge equals no framework at the beginning, correct? So
yeah.
Retrospectively, looking back, having built the portfolio and treating it as a business, the framework that I ultimately refined to get to, which drove finally that success and the speed of that growth, is called the BRRRR, which is an acronym. It's B and 4 R's, which stands for Buy, Renovate, Rent, Refinance, Repeat. So it's called the BRRRR. And the essence of that is, in the New Zealand context at least, buying existing builds, they're run down. Also with, I guess, part of my specific method is I look for particular layouts, floor plans, sizes to add internal bedrooms. So on top of the classic BRRRR, if you are a real estate investor, we're trying to supercharge the cash flow and add value. Again, not being told I have to choose one of the two, it's both. By adding a bedroom is by far the fastest way to increase cash flow and the value or the wealth of that property. So I guess you could say it's a metaphor for finding a way and your take on a method to challenge how you may get the best of both, or find a solution for two benefits rather than be told and take on face value just because someone else has told you that you need to choose. I refuse to choose, and the difference can be 2 3-bedroom 1-bath houses side by side. I will buy, and now I help my clients learn to buy or choose the one of those two, where we can convert that from a 3 to a 4-bedroom. So if you pay or buy a 3-bedroom house, but you buy the one you're able to convert into a 4-bedroom, you then receive a rent according to the 4-bedroom, and it's now worth the value of a 4-bedroom.
So this is the BRRRR. So can you run through it again? So what's B for?
Buy,
Buying,
renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. So it's a cycle.
And this is based on renovation that you have implemented and refined throughout the years. How many years have you been in this for again?
I've been investing for 19, part-time for the first 8, and then around 11 for full-time.
Okay. While you were renovating, you were also building a business. And if you look back and you look at the framework of BRRRR, how would you take that framework and implement it into how you built this as a business, as opposed to the tactical, practical renovation work?
Yeah, sure. So of the 11 full-time years, I've been a coach teaching clients to copy and paste my portfolio, basically. So the evolution of my portfolio, because I treated it like a business, has attracted people to do the same. Again, I would say treating your investments as a business, how strongly you treat your investments as a business will define how far you can scale them. I genuinely believe that.
And you would treat them as seriously.
Correct. And I was approached to start the coaching business, so to teach others to copy the best of the BRRRR, and this is what we're teaching as a service now, is the best of what we've learned. So again, shortcutting time, we allow 101 first-time investors to do what we do now after 19 years. So,
but if you look back, if I may pause, if you look back on the way that you've handled yourself, the way that you've done all your communications, your negotiations, your deals, you had to have deals. Like, you have to be good with making deals. Yeah. Right? Like, you had to have an eye for something, had a bit of an intuition for something. People, I feel, like, for example, if you take me and you say, what would be something that is good in terms of podcasting? I'd say, I don't know, you just somehow develop a knack for doing that, like knack for just picking something key and then just honing in on that. That is a key into the progress of having a good podcast, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of for you as a property investor and now coach, when you look back at your life, you think, this is how I was able to build this. These are the specific skills that I had to go. I knew that my mind wasn't in the right place. Was that the case for you in terms of mindset? Or were you always thinking, I can do this, I have a belief, I'm unstoppable?
Yeah, I think I've had, a fantastic childhood with everything that my brother and I needed. We were given.
Nice.
We weren't short of anything. I look back, however, and see how much my parents sacrificed for themselves to make sure we did, and I have always had that hustle of I want better, I want more, and I want to make sure that I can always provide for my kids and family. So I think that is definitely a part of the mindset. I'm the eldest child. I'm the eldest grandchild in a Chinese family. I'm half Chinese, so I think there are several cultural layers to that too. But in terms of, I guess I've never thought something wouldn't work. I've always thought there's no reason why this should not happen or not work. And with my first renovation, so the catalyst for going full-time into renovating, which was half a decade or so before I started coaching, was that I actually lost my mother very unexpectedly while I was living abroad. And so if you think about pain point, I came home. I was never getting another day with my mother. I thought, I'm coming home where my family is. I'm not missing another minute with my father, with my family, and now what became my future, my own family. Everything I do will add value for my family. And I decided I'm not going to work for these large corporates anymore. It didn't align with my values. So the catalyst for going into the first renovation full-time, I saw a profit and loss of someone who renovated and flipped, which means renovated and sold a property back on the market.
Yeah.
All of the numbers were there. I thought, this is so transparent. If I can copy this and follow the map, surely I can do this too. She's done it, I can do it too. I went into the Mitre 10. I looked up every price tag for a screw, a nut, a bolt, a 4x2 piece of timber, every tap. And I pulled together an entire renovation plan. So you have to be willing to do that extra to be really on the detail and try and iron out the risk of mistakes. I like to take risks, but I'm still calculated. And so
was that the case back then?
That was the case because at the time, my husband was working full-time as a marketing manager for one of the largest beer brands. So we had a good base income as a household. That was our foundation. I was the one helping us take the risk to amplify faster towards our dreams, which were to have this financial freedom, passive income from rent. That's kind of as specific as we were a decade ago when we came home. And so I was the person risking everything for us to hopefully get more ultimately, rather than be that second corporate salary. So I had no option but for that to work. In my mind, there was no way this was not going to work. But the first renovation, I called the registered valuer to come and sign off what I'd completed. He turned up to site and he laughed. And I thought, what is he laughing at? He said, why do you have double glazed windows in Mangere? This is the only house with double glazing. No one asked for this. So basically...
For people who don't know what Mangere is.
Yeah, in South Auckland.
Which is...
Mangere, South Auckland, close to the airport, is a suburb.
And a bit of context as to why double glazing isn't a...
Yeah, so basically what he was telling me is I had renovated, but had I thoughtfully considered what I should do to make it relevant to the typical house here. Double glazed windows in 2015 in Mangere, 90 square meter weatherboard house? Absolutely not. And was it necessary? Probably not. Basically what he was saying was you have overspent, you have over-capitalized on this. The only reason that I didn't lose money on that was because I was already so broke in terms of cash flow that I had pulled my brother in to renovate with me 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for 11 weeks, not a day off through that summer. The only reason we didn't technically overcapitalize was because I didn't pay him an hourly rate. I said, I will pay you in the future in equity per day based on how much you help me here. I can't pay you cash, but I will pay you in equity one day. So the only reason I had anything to give him was because we were effectively unpaid labor. But the beauty of that lesson was we were fortunate that our builder, every day he sort of coached us through. Now you're sanding weatherboards today. Tomorrow you'll be priming them. On your way home, go to the shop. Here's your shopping list. This primer, these tools, these materials. Every day we went home, we were building up our toolkit, which is almost like if you apply that mentally to a business entrepreneur, you're building up that toolkit under the guise of the watching eye, rather, of someone who has done it before. And so that was a way for me to leverage my knowledge and accelerate that. Had I not had our builder alongside us saying, nope, sand a bit more, that's not good enough, I would have done a patched job at best. And how much longer would it have taken me over years to get to that 20 million, if at all, right?
So you needed to have that builder.
We needed the builder who was kindly, he was.
How did you find the good builder? Like, that's again.
He was a relationship. Yeah. So I would say if you sit there and think about for your business what you want as leverage, you honestly can leverage everything. Anything you leave on the table, you're costing yourself one way or another.
So for that builder, how did you find him?
He was through my in-laws, a relationship. He had been doing work, so that's where...
So a relationship, like networking, like seeing in your circle who can help.
Like-minded people, those with the right mindset, those who want to help. He obviously had more of a vested interest wanting to help because he was working with family. Okay. So, where there's that kind of reciprocity, right? So, some of these principles, you can see them emanate in different ways or materialize in different ways. The BRRRR, as I've now applied it to coaching, and I really reflect and see this now, is, when you're copying and pasting, refinance and repeat, you're reinvesting and trying to refine something to do it better next time. If I I've run this exercise. If I put all of my properties I've purchased and the year I purchased them and the rent I achieved, almost on a perfect trajectory, there's some anomalies, but the overall pattern is that the gross return and the cash flow that I created from them improves on every single one. And there's a reason for that. You want to improve or do a PB, personal best, on your last project or on the last outcome for that project, or how well you scaled your business. What do you learn from your last contract that you can do better on the next? So every single property, which I was treating as an output of my business, performs better than the last. And that's a natural progression because now we invest in ex-motels, large blocks of units, social housing, typical housing, private housing. But when I look at the recent projects I've completed for myself and the latest one for my clients, every single time the outputs and the results are better than the previous. And that's how it should be. You don't start as an investor buying blocks of units. You start with a standalone house, or you start with something smaller, and you build your skills up to allow yourself to be available to the opportunity. And that applies in anything you're doing.
All right, you guys, I want to tell you about one resource that I look into and check all the time. It's helped me in my own business journey, and it's made me a better business owner, a better podcaster, helped me stay on top of all the business news that are happening in New Zealand. It's called NZBusiness Magazine. It's one of the New Zealand's oldest and most trusted sources for business stories, insights, and analysis for SME owners and leaders. So we've partnered together to help bring these kind of conversations like this one to more Kiwi entrepreneurs across New Zealand. So if you want to stay on top of what's happening in business, visit nzbusiness.co.nz today. Hello, thanks for watching this video. Quick note, have you subscribed? Over 90% of people who are watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or on Apple are not subscribed or following. Please do so now. It's so simple. The button will be around the screen somewhere. You either hit subscribe or hit the follow button or leave me a review. It will help me so much, helps me grow as a channel and support my work. So I really appreciate it. Okay, back to the episode. Yeah, so what do you, when it comes to decisions, there's macro decisions and there's micro decisions. Macro is like the big vision, big picture. And you decide, like, there is always values that direct those visions. Like for you, what would these values be, and how did it direct you towards forming that vision? So you were talking about, moving from overseas back home and having that freedom and wanting to spend more time with family, because I felt like there was a sense. Do you ever felt like that, just like that micro decision to move back home? Do you think that was the key to starting things, or what was the key, the big decision that actually set you off on a trajectory? Especially, this is for people who are like struggling to make any decision.
Yes, yeah, I hear where you're going. So for several different reasons, moving home was absolutely the catalyst on that higher trajectory. You know, I pushed that incline up. The fundamental reason at the time for it was, rather than line someone else's pockets in a corporate job, at the time I was working for a Russian oligarch who didn't even know my name. I thought, why am I spending my life working for someone who doesn't know my name? So fundamentally, I needed to change that. That was the emotional decision, values-based driven decision, that every dollar we make will be going into my family or for people I care about. That also meant that it was all on me. I had to make this happen. But if I have a lack of resource, knowledge, time, expertise, and this is the other part I'm super passionate about, the BRRRR might be the framework to constantly recycle and refine a test or a hypothesis based on the previous outcome. Truly surrounding you, I mean, it sounds like we all say this, but surrounding yourself with the right people, with the right skills, having curiosity, I think, is so important. So
if someone here now doesn't know how to surround themselves with the right, like, this is so key.
Yeah, it's so key.
Would it be like a micro decision that really helped you
yes,
get good at every project, property that you've done? It's better and better. Is it because of the people that were involved with you?
Yes.
And if so, like, we did touch on, like, how did you get on and find that builder that helped you in the Mangere house? So,
I would say, so two parts on that. So having the right people. So I would actually challenge everyone. This was a real discomfort I personally had. I've consistently pushed myself to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think it's really important. So for example, I worked for a major bank when I started investing. I was surrounded by exposure to a lot of different industry verticals, a lot of profit and loss balance sheets, and seeing what was a norm in for a nightclub versus a car dealer versus a developer versus a massive digger hire company, and I didn't know how to have conversations with these people. They were so intimidating. I was an analyst for them, helping them get more lending at the time. So my job was to understand their business so that I could get credit to sign off more cash. If I didn't push myself to ask questions to then learn more about them, how would I ever successfully achieve their goals and get lending for them? So you have to ask questions. You have to talk to people that you find intimidating. What's the worst that can happen? Have you ever had someone turn their shoulder or not speak to you? I think that would be an extremely rare outcome, but we tend to lean on assuming that might be the default. There would be the Chamber of Commerce events, which normally the senior leadership team would go to. I would always put my hand up. I would always be terrified to attend, but I always made myself go. And every time I met someone who was interesting, I learned someone. I got to sit next to Sir John Key the week before he became PM, because I put myself out there to go help the local MP. And he said, I want you to come and sit next to John as a thank you. That was so intimidating. Like, can you imagine? I think I was 26, 25, sitting next to the future PM. And it's just being uncomfortable is that growth moment. The one regret, if I can call it that, I don't do regrets because just don't leave the stone unturned. But the one stone I left unturned during my overseas experience living in London was, we've all sat on the underground. If you've been there, you sat on the underground in the subway. We're all sitting there silent. We're silent sardines. My retrospective thought is, imagine if I just asked that person what they do, said, hello, what do you do? There were dozens of people in every carriage. Imagine how many business deals or how many different points of contact I could have had if I just did that every second time I was on there. all of that opportunity was left on the table. And that's the one thing that disturbs me. I have this need to ask a question or say hello, because you never know where that striking up that conversation can lead. Opportunities happen that way all the time.
I'm a firm believer in that.
You are?
100%.
Yes.
And in fact, I mean, I'm kind of an extrovert. So if I'm in a big room, it's not, oh my gosh, it's like, how many people can I talk to? Like, I want to talk to everybody, and I want to be put into a really discomforting position where I have to speak to someone I don't know, and they could look intimidating as well. And I think it's really important. So thank you for sharing that. I think
could I give a little example of that?
Please do.
A perfect example of that. So I'm fortunate to be a member of the Northern Club, and this is the outgoing Prime Minister gets an invite. It's a very traditional sort of club, and it's largely a legally based club, but I'm very lucky to have been invited there by a former PM, and I attended an event a few weeks ago that I thought, this is interesting. I don't even know the business. The founder was coming from New York. I attended. I was sitting at the table with the Forsyth Bar, whole investment team. Didn't know them, so 6 or 7 new conversations, which have led to other parts of growth for me, and thinking I need to diversify. So I'm gathering some information and looking to invest with them. But that wasn't the key point. The main point was, at the end, this person who has a $500 million business, the event I was attending, I thought, I need to go talk with him, because he has an education business that is really breaking through and at odds with the schooling system. And he has direct mentorships with the ex-president of Yale and Harvard. And I thought, I need to talk to this guy, because I have kids. I want to understand how I can do the best for my kids. I went up and talked to him. Turns out he's just bought a house in Takapuna. I said, no kidding. I live in Takapuna. He pulls out satellite. He said, I just bought that house. I said, I am 2 roofs over. So we are now neighbours.
No way.
And now catching up, and think about the networking from that perspective. I went and checked out a school he physically just bought. Most of it's online, but he bought a school.
Wow.
And that has all come because I let myself be uncomfortable to approach this seemingly intimidating, almost billionaire, and look what can come from that. So take that as a little beacon. What's the comparable example in your world?
Yeah, I really love that example. I think the word here is gutsy.
You sound much more gutsy. I like that you thrive. I definitely am the person which, I don't know, I feel like more commonly walk into the room, there's that anxiety or that sense of, but to not let that intimidation overcome you. I think you naturally have a skill of thriving on the, what do all these people do? You're excited to approach.
Yeah.
Would you say it's more common that most think, oh, there's so many people in here, and they actually need to overcome that?
I actually think, gosh, there's so many people here. I can't believe that I won't be able to have the chance to talk to all of them.
Oh, wow.
That's how
I love that for you.
Yeah, because like I was at an event earlier before filming, and there was 600 people, and I wanted to talk to everybody. And I actually get annoyed for sitting on a table, because like I'm stuck with only a few people. I love the people who sat next to me, and I had such a good chat. Yeah. But there's a point where like, okay, I got to know about you. I mean, I'd love to find out more about everyone else, and I want to be fascinated by everybody else. And it hasn't come naturally, because as we all know, your background works wonders, right? So as a pharmacist, that would be a shock to some people, knowing that I'm a pharmacist, but actually I'm a pharmacist. You have to talk to strangers and say, hey, would you like some help? Or as a pharmacist, start asking them some questions to figure out how I can help. So that's partly. And then also as a journo, it's very brutal. You have to really go and speak to some really scary, big people about serious questions that they don't want to answer. Or speaking to people on the road, like on the side street, about what they think about their opinion for the latest bill or whatever. So it's all of that training that has led to this part. I suppose for you as well is like, it's all these properties and the people that you've met and the builders that you had to discuss. I would really love to get into, before we get into business lessons, well, maybe this is going to be part of the business lesson, is negotiation. I don't know why, but I feel like you're a very good negotiator, because you can't get to $20 million worth of property and then coaching without you being a good negotiator and able to make some deals happen. So, yeah, like, how do you see yourself as a negotiator to start with?
Okay, great. So, I mean, that is practice, right? As with everything, the first few properties I was shocking with, when I look back, gave it all away.
Why were you shocking?
Had no prior exposure, really. I guess, you hear we do negotiate a lot throughout life in different ways.
In terms of lessons that you have learned, I'm sure you've learned heaps over the last 19 years. What are the key ones that have made you able to go from 0 to 20 to have a startup, to actually move forward and build a coaching business as well?
Mm-hmm. So I have 4 key lessons. Is it lessons? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, 4 key lessons that will help you shed lazy resource and scale, as it has done for myself, both for my portfolio and for my business. Number 1 is to lean into your absolute top skills. That's your highest payback skills. Lean into that lane and stick to that lane. Number 2 is to outsource or employ absolutely everything else. Again, that doubles down on the ROI on your time. Number 3, shed any lazy resource, debt, assets that are not performing. Constantly think about what is the weakest link within the company, and shed that. Find a replacement ASAP, because that is pulling you back, that's costing. And number 4 is to empower and align your team so that you scale. And I can go into details.
Yeah,
on this.
I was going to say, can we please get into the top one first?
Perfect. So choose your skills and stick to your lane. In my residential investment world, that meant I cannot be, if I'm going to scale, a property manager or the best property manager. I cannot be the full power team, which I call my builders, my sparkies, my plumbers. I already don't have those technical skills. If I'm not already the best at that, because I have 10,000 hours plus experience, I need to choose that I'm a professional investor treating this as a business to scale. Number 2, which was to outsource or employ everyone else. That is, before
we get into the outsource, I want to stick it to the top skills first. So you couldn't be the sparky, the plumber, but when you first started, you had no team. So you had to learn those skills, right?
I needed to know enough to be able to call someone out I needed to know enough to warrant whether they were doing the right job or a poor job. Okay. So there's a limitation to how much I need to know. It's a need to know basis, as long as they productively meet the budget, the outcomes, the timeline that we've agreed and prescribed, and know to be reasonable. For example, if an electrician came around and said, this scope, which I've also done before, is going to be quoted at twice the cost I'm used to, because they think I'm a woman that possibly doesn't own the property and maybe I'm here for my dad. If they quote me twice the price, I have enough knowledge to call them out, because I know my previous job was half the price. That's what I need to know. Gotcha. I need to know I can complete this scope in 4 or 5 weeks. And if they tell me it's 10, I can call them up.
Okay, so this is key, because that can be applied to business and entrepreneurship. And so you need to stick to your lane. And so you, from the start, you wanted to be the investor. You had a different, you were like, I have a skill of being the person who wants to take charge. I don't want to be doing the ins and the outs. What happens if, in the business scenes, if people don't know what good skills they have? I don't know if I'm good at this.
I think you naturally start doing everything. So I actually started out thinking I will renovate on the tools to save money. I thought I would do the plastering, painting. I would learn the non-regulatory parts, because that would therefore bulk up the result in terms of the net equity gain. So how much I would make, because I was sweat equity, we call it, free labor. I thought that would be a great value on my time. Then I realized if I want to have multiple renovations in multiple locations, I'm limited by my ability. So that's no longer serving my biggest outcome. It's better for me to have 4 teams across 4 locations, but for my skill to become how to get the absolute maximum extraction of value or the best rent based on leaning on those professions. So that really leans into outsource and employ. In that world, if I were to be the property manager, there are seriously high fees under tenancy tribunal if you do not execute to the letter of the law. I am not a full-time property manager. Am I more likely to get caught out by doing something non-compliant just because I didn't know? Yes.
Yeah.
That's not my best and highest use. If I do not know all those T's and all those I's, I'm better to do what I'm better at and employ someone, it's like another level of insurance to me. Like that's worth every dollar so that I can scale the portfolio, because that was the goal. Not getting into the weeds was not my goal. Getting into the weeds was not my goal.
It's not your goal, yeah. Getting into the nitty-gritty. And I think, what was the third one?
Third one is to shed lazy debt. So for me as an investor, that meant really hard calls. And I think you might be thinking, oh, I know there's something in my gut I need to get rid of, or there's a staff member who's, not turning up and charging me the hours. Whatever your version of this is, there are some hard calls that every entrepreneur has to make. For me, and I think we have that founders thinking of, I need to do it all because it's better if I do it fast, and myself, then I'll get it done before I need to ask anyone else to do this. Worst mentality. Since I've changed that, everything has scaled. That comes, I'm moving too far ahead. The key to shedding the lazy resource as an investor was to sell the lowest performing properties. That's very hard to do if the time is not right. And the hard truth is that when you know you need to sell them is usually in the worst market. So you're doubling down on a really hard pain point. I have sold the properties that I finally came to realize that they were actually costing me years of getting towards my financial goals because of how much they were dragging me down. So I have sold 2 properties at a 6-figure loss because I knew that how poorly they were performing would cost me more in the long run. Yeah. So that's the mindset of saying I'm making a sacrifice now because ultimately it's either costing me time or it's costing me financially much more in the long run. So that's the third one, and those are the hardest transactions to put into place.
And you also talked about empowering and aligning.
Exactly. So finally, accepting that I couldn't grow and do everything myself, pulling in the right people. I have the most phenomenal team. My husband now is in the team. He's incredibly statistically and analytically minded, more so than myself. So he has actually gone into helping analyze off-market deals that come to us, analyzing the deals our clients are looking to go through with. And then now I have an EA and operations manager who, and the align part is we have someone who's interested in what we do, has no prior experience, but I'm empowering her and we're giving her opportunities to learn from the case studies, run the marketing, see what success stories our clients have had, because that is helping her learn by proxy. And now she's going to open homes, questioning this, looking at the layouts, thinking the way we do, and applying that to her life. And I can see her thriving, her confidence with something she didn't know at all before she started. Letting her grow and not micromanage her is helping all of us, and it's the most incredible thing that we're observing now. And that gives that BRRRR, that loop, that confidence to say when you find the right people and you allow them to flourish, they help you flourish.
A lot of the people have spoken to me on the show have shared incredibly bad mistakes, and I have to ask, what was the biggest mistake that you've had that you remember that have cost you a lot of money and you learned a lot from it?
The biggest mistake I've made on any of my own projects was when I broke my framework, when I broke my own rules. It cost me financially, it cost me in time, but it also helped me problem solve. So it kind of grew a new skill, if you like. So it was on one of the largest projects I'd bought. It was a $2 million purchase. It was a large block of units, and my criteria was that the method is to always retain as much control. So what I mean by that is looking at the right property from the outset, that we don't really need inputs from other third parties that could delay our plan or time or add cost. How do we retain control? That's the method. I spotted an opportunity in the rear corner at pre-settlement. So just before I took over this property, it had been the vendor was a hoarder. I previously did not know this part of the building existed because it was locked away and full of junk. When I inspected it at takeover, I spotted this huge area. I thought I can add another rental unit into this building, which required building consent, needed to involve council approval, all these things. That was outside of my method. I went into mode, followed my normal process, which was let's get a quote and a scope from the builder and everyone involved. I looked at what the rent would be once I'd completed this extra unit. And we had a plan. We had it checked off with council. It was meant to cost $100,000 or just over and take 6 weeks to complete the build. throughout that process, which should have taken 6 weeks, the council changed their mind on things. They would come to site, they would approve, and then they would get back to the office and then turn it into a fail. So I was not in control. These were third party. The issue is when you start this process, you don't get an outcome or benefit till you're done. And what should have cost that and taken 6 weeks ended up costing $140,000 and took 10 months. And I was depending on getting that rental cash flow after the 6 weeks is planned. So the lesson for me was I suffered a lot financially because I had a plan, and I always deliver on the plan when I can control it. The council, however, I couldn't control, and they kept changing their minds and expecting other things. The outcome was that rather than 6 weeks later, I was at risk of going almost a year of not having cash flow from that. The costs had blown out massively. I had to find money to pay those costs. In the end, I had to find a solution. The solution was, because it needed a very specific fire-rated door, without getting technical, there's one manufacturer in the country with a 6-month wait list. And I thought after 8 months, this is ridiculous. I ran the calculation on the lost rent per week for that extra 6 months. It was going to cost me more than a cheeky bribe to see if I could get myself up the list. I ended up asking if I could pay them 3 times the cost of the door that they'd quoted to have it done in 1 week. They said yes. I had it installed within that next 2 weeks.
No way.
And got the CCC and got the rent in.
That's so cool. Wow.
So I don't know, how do you apply that to your business? But
I think this is smart because you're looking forward to how much this is going to cost you and how much, how much was the cost to not renting for 6 months, and how much is it for a silly little fire rated door, meaning it's a special kind of door. So I think for you, so when you look back at that, what would you change? What would you do differently for you to not get into that situation? I think that will give us a lot of lessons about the things that we can learn about not making mistakes.
That's a perfect question. And I sat down with my team after that to see what would we do differently, because I found that challenging in and of itself. I had all the professionals from the outset. We ran a preliminary check with the council before the formal process, before we jumped into what would be a very high cost process. And I knew there would be unknowns with that.
Because we also know that with constructions, you will never stay on point with time and you will never stay with budget.
That's right. The best mindset, whether it's a renovation or any project, is to have a plan for the worst and hope for the best, not the other way around. So go in with a renovation and think, I will find something that blows my budget. Go in with a contingency budget. Always expect to spend it. Don't put in the contingency and say, I hope I don't spend it. Plan to mentally spend it and think, I know I will find something. I just have to find what it is. It's most likely the leaky shower over bath. Oh, it's not that. What is it now? Is it the outdated cylinder? If you go in there expecting to find it, it's less of a blow when you find it. So what we discovered in that process and basically reviewing was my builder said we would pay a fee up front next time to employ. It was kind of a fire related matter. We would get that fire engineer and we would run everything by him and pay a fee up front, because even if we paid him $3,000, $4,000, we would have saved ourselves, 8 months. 8.5 months.
And did you know about the fire situation that you would have had? Well, you could have had a professional fire engineer, but you didn't.
We did. They were involved further down the process as a matter of the process. So it was it was the first time working with that council for me. It was the first time following a specific type of consent. So there were a lot of unknowns. Myself and the team, we calculated as much as we could or anticipate within the scope of what we'd done before. The part that we will never get control over is that the council, you can talk to one person in the team and get an approval, or here's the path. Then you get someone else within the team retrospectively and they have a different point of view. You can't get upset about the aspects you can't control, but it's best to have a plan B and a C, and again have contingency for time and bring in the experts. So the lesson was, I would prefer to over-index upfront and invest a little more to bring those professionals forward, consult with them independently, because that would save time, and time saves money.
I guess there's so much that we can apply that to entrepreneurship. And to kind of finalize, it would be great if we could get into the next aspect of your business. Now that you've had the portfolio, some 30 properties or something under your belt at the moment, I'm assuming that is what you've got right now. But then you take it a step further and thinking, okay, I've got all these skills. I am going to turn it into a coaching program. I'm going to be thinking about how do I teach people. And that's a whole nother business in its own. Because yes, you're helping, but it's also, that's your time, your IP. How do you create demand, or did you manufacture demand?
I'm so pleased you've asked this question. I think particularly for real estate, it's a particularly important one, but across any industry also. So we've continued to build the portfolio beyond that, with everything being quite public. I actually, don't talk about all the projects anymore because it's quite nice to just have some things private as well. But because I've been so focused on the coaching, there are projects, the season I guess we're in, and I'm in particular. I say we because my husband's in the team now, but the season that I'm in as an entrepreneur is I'm really focused on my clients. So, we've acquired properties that we haven't yet renovated, which is so at odds. Normally I'm like, squeeze all the juice, get the best cash flow, but that's not the season. The season for us now is we're helping as many Kiwis copy paste the same sort of acceleration of their goals. So I think a couple things on what you've asked. I've treated my portfolio so seriously and built the teams and outsourced and leveraged and treated that to a point where it has really... our passive income, our income from rents, which we call passive income, is higher than any of our active incomes we had when we were both working. And so I guess to that level or to that degree of outcome, that speaks volumes in terms of, well, if we want that and we've achieved that, others start to follow and want that. I'm very fortunate that I was approached, but this is, again, come back to strike a conversation. You don't know where it will lead to.
Did it start by a conversation?
Yep. I had talked about maybe I should coach this. I'm quite keen to. Didn't know how to take the steps. I listened to a podcast that was finally a New Zealand real estate one. And I just DM'd that host and I said, oh, I'm so glad you have this New Zealand version. I've been listening to US podcasts. He started asking me questions. And then about 3 days later, he said, come and meet with my business partners and I. I had no idea why. I was 30 weeks pregnant. They didn't know that. I rocked up to this face-to-face with this huge belly and they said, we want you to do what you do as a business within our organisation. And they said, none of us are parents. They saw my belly. They went, none of us are parents. We didn't realise you're pregnant. You tell us when you're ready and we'll start. But they dropped that seed and they put that seed in my head and I thought, now it's there. I can't leave it alone. So I had my baby. When he was 6 weeks old, I called them. I said, let's go. So we jumped over to Waiheke. We had a full weekend brainstorming. Basically, what I created was a coaching version to replicate my portfolio as a service within their business. Everything else that they were doing was new build, and they spotted the opportunity. So I'm very grateful. A lot of the business operations and things I've learned has been from them. So they approached me. We set this up very rapidly. Yeah. I did. And what I see is that it's the experience with time. Time is very important, and I think undervalued. We want things fast. We want heavy results quickly. Heavy results and sustainable results take time, which is what they identified. I'd completed these dozens of renovations for myself. I'd been helping family members also. There was all these sort of offshoots that they could see, and they said, look, you have an authority. They had platforms and they had a podcast, we had webinars, we had these ways to grow my authority. And I had the experience to really support that. I think in real estate it's particularly important. I think it's a lesson to show that if you treat what you have a passion and a skill for, you can't just like something, you have to excel at it. And that's through the skills framework, everything we've discussed, teamwork's leverage. When you are humming and leaning right into your skill and passion and you're good at it, you're getting the results that others will want, or if others are starting to tell you, hey, can you do this for me? Those little signals of going, can you just do this? I see you've done that. Or who do you use for this? Who's your supplier here? What would you do in this situation? Those are those little nuggets of going, hang on, I think I've got something here.
I see.
And the second part to that, I think, is the credibility credibility is really what you're asking, particularly for real estate. It's easy to throw up an Instagram page and do some funny reels and go, oh, here's this single project I've done, or look what I've done. Be critical, I would say. If you're thinking of going with a coach, whether it's this or any type of mentorship, if you have 2 years experience in something and you have ambitious goals, go find a mentor who has 15 years experience. 2 plus 15 is 17. You can go from 2 to 17 years experience overnight. Invest in it, leverage it. Shortcut time, cheat time for yourself. If someone is calling themselves a mentor or a coach and they've completed one project, what's that adding? For someone to have the credibility that works for you, find someone who has achieved what you set out to achieve. Because if they haven't done that themselves, they cannot shine the light on that path for you. So I would say use your critical brain when trying to leverage someone and stand on the shoulders of that giant, because you want to extract as much as you can to cheat time for yourself. So choose carefully.
Yeah, and this is so powerful. And I think definitely like the key word in this conversation is leverage, meaning using someone else's time, money, or even intellect or IP, and going fast and forward. What were the biggest struggles for you as a business owner, as a woman, that really struck you and you're like, just glad I'm over that, but it was really difficult?
In the previous, with a full-time renovating business, just as a woman particularly, you touch on that, was I would pull my father, my brother, friends and flatmates into help in those early days, thankful for them. And the default when a tradie turned up was to walk straight past me and go find my dad and ask a question. Like literally look through me. Wow. I'd like to think, and I do, that never would happen with my teams these days. And I'd like to think that we've progressed a long way from there. But I can hand on heart say that the number of times someone thought I was just, I don't know who they thought I was on site, not just a body walking around on a site. So that was back then, that's probably 12 years ago or so. As within the coaching business, I had 3 incredible male partners in the first 4 years of the coaching business. I would say that the division was more around the fact that we started to see when anything real estate was tricky post-COVID, and both areas of the businesses, they needed on the new build side, I needed on the renovations focus side to have maximum resource and focus. And there came a point where it was a little tug of war, because resource was, is it going $1 this side or $1 this side? And ultimately, the umbrella of very successful established businesses, they had needed focus, but equally I had some ideas that I could see were opportunities. I had one service at that point. I'd been sort of pitching. I can see from this sample of results of these larger scale projects of my own and some clients, there's a massive opportunity to help experienced investors go to the next level. And one of the partners was saying, no, one service, just go harder, one. And I could see this experience, this opportunity. And I said, look, 2023, I said, look, we need to all double down and stick to our lane to thrive. This is a really tough market. There are lots of businesses around us falling down. We weren't in that position, thankfully, but you could see that you had to focus. Too many things too broadly was not helping. And so we agreed I would buy them out. I would go independent, became Wolfe Property Coaching just over 2 years ago, and launched that second service. Only 2 years that has become 50% in terms of number of clients. I have as many clients there, and that's meeting the same number of clients on the original service, Accelerate. So within 2 years, that new service that I just knew, right? I knew I could see this was an opportunity. It's now 50% of the clients that I'm helping. So it's a massive growth area of the business. And I guess if I could say, coming back to the BRRRR and refinance, repeat, or recycle, is that the growth overall from the coaching and taking that opportunity, which was one of the biggest but scariest decisions I've ever made.
Why?
Then it's all on me. I don't then have the partner network and the expertise. It's another situation of I cannot make there's no option but for this to work, and my family is 100% dependent on this to work. That's what's holding me positive and driven, is there are 4 of us needing this to work, and that has grown to be the same size as the foundational part of the business. Had I not bought the guys out, we would be, I guess, half the business, if not less. So the great thing in the recycling of that is that is fueling even further our investments, and our kids are at an age where they're now getting curious and want to get involved. So this summer we'll go paint one of our blocks of units up Mangere. So it's all recycling intergenerationally, knowledge-wise. The coaching business is further fueling our goals for our personal portfolio, and we're helping more and more investors do the same for themselves. So it's incredible. Yeah.
Thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing how you could be successful as a business, as an entrepreneur, by touching on the world of renovation and property and investment. And I think, I feel like if I was listening to this, I need to listen back to it again to actually get the insights and the principles that you shared. So thank you. Any final words, any best advice that you've ever been given?
Oh, best advice I've been given.
Yeah.
I would say stop overestimating what you need to achieve or you think you need to achieve in the year, and start putting more value on the long term and what you can achieve and how important time is. Time compounds everything. The sooner you make the mistakes up front, the sooner you can get on that higher trajectory and learn more. One of my very early informal mentors said to me when I was negotiating one of those first deals, I was agonizing. Should I spend $525,000 or $520,000? I really wanted to get this vendor down by $5,000. And he said to me, Ilse, when this property is worth $2 million, you will not care whether you paid $520,000 or $525,000. Get the job done, get it on the book. And that has been a guiding light for me. Don't sweat the small stuff and focus on acquiring, whatever that is in your world. Is it acquire that tooling machine so you can launch higher productivity? Is it that next property because you can see the market's about to grow? Lock it in. Then it works for you. Buy that property at the current value rather than buy it 6 months down the track and let it be someone else's capital growth. Let it be yours.
I love this. Thank you so much for sharing, and all the best to you. If people want to reach out to you and find about you and connect, how can they go about doing that?
Can follow me at Wolfe Property Coaching on Instagram. Share lots of tips and tricks, and we also have lots of free downloadables if you're looking at getting the nuts and bolts to get started. Absolutely welcome you to inquire through our website or message or DM me to come and have a chat. More than happy. I think it's really important to help people connect the dots, and hopefully this has done a great job of getting you stimulated to take some action. And if part of that is to ask a few more questions of myself, then get in touch. I'm more than happy to help.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ilse.
Thank you, Mina.